Here we go. Oh, here we go. And I got earpieces in tonight. Oh, I'm big time tonight. Gather round, clowns. Michael Moulton, M2 The Rock, coming to you live from Dallas, Texas. You know what? I hope my guest just heard that. I know he's back. I hope he heard that. Coming to you live from Dallas, Texas, D-Town, baby, the 214, the home of your one and only Dallas Cowboys. I think he told me last night that he's a Cowboy fan. I'm going to let him make it. All right, gather around, clowns. My name is Michael Moulton, and I am your host tonight. This is M2 The Rock, where we talk about drug addiction. Drug addiction. Bunch of just homeless junkies, right? Come on, man. Drug addiction. Alcoholism. Wait a minute, M2. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing with your glasses on. I don't know what you're doing with your FBI hat on, but you just said drug addiction, alcoholism. You got iHeartRadio behind you. What are you up to, fool? Let me tell you something, what we talk about in this show. We talk about recovery on this show. That's right, because my name is Michael, and I'm a recovering drug addict alcoholic, and I've been clean and sober since May 29th, 2017, and that does include the weekends. It does. It includes the weekends, too. And we talk about hurts, habits, and hangups. We talk about codependency. We talk about sobriety, and we also have very diversified. We talk about on the show that when I say this, do not leave the show. Just let me make it, okay? We talk about God. I said that. I meant that. I represent that. I'm all about that. And I don't work for the FBI. We talk about God on this show. Spiritual solutions for my human problems, because for a long time, I had radical solutions for my simple problems. Dan Caldwell Counseling is our guest tonight. And man, it was so cool how we met. This guy, he's just a beast follower on the show. And he's always been in the comments. Y'all have seen him in the comments, Caldwell Counseling. And he is backstage right now signing autographs, getting his picture taken, doing all the things that these, big time. I'm just playing. This dude is humble. Anyway, so check this out. This show is brought to you by DFW Coin and Jewelry. That's DFW Coin and Jewelry here in Dallas. Kristen Oyster, go check him out. He's been a sponsor of the show since day one, okay? DFW Coin and Jewelry and Healing Springs Ranch. Look out, Healing Springs Ranch. I see y'all out there. I know you're watching tonight. I will be at Healing Springs Ranch tomorrow for 3 hours performing group at Healing Springs Ranch. What are you talking about, M2? Are you some sort of therapist, counselor, psychiatrist? Neither. Nothing. I am in long-term recovery. I'm a part of their clinical staff. You're a part of their clinical staff. What do you have? What do you got? Nothing. But I am monitored by a licensed clinical therapist that sits in our group, 2 of them, okay? And I sit in there and we do group. We do psychotherapy, and we talk about what it's like for long-term recovery out in the world once you get out in the world after recovery. So we're going to talk about that tonight too. So Healing Springs Ranch, go check them out. They got a really good Facebook Live tomorrow night at 6:00. Okay, you got to check that out. So anyways, I've got this hat on. I got to tell y'all a story. I go into 7-Eleven this morning, okay? And as I go into 7-Eleven this morning, ready? I got my mask on. I got my sunglasses on, and I'm walking into 7-Eleven, and I'm practicing social distancing. I get my coffee, and I walk up to pay for my coffee, and they say, "Oh, no, the coffee's on us." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "No, I'll pay for my coffee." No. We appreciate you. We appreciate everything that you do for us. And I'm like going, what are they talking about? Now, I've had some people say, is this M2? We like to see you, all that stuff. But this person was like adamant that I was not going to pay for my coffee. And I'm like, what is going on? And as I'm walking out, 2 people say, "Hey, man, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you do." They thought I worked for the FBI and would not charge me for my coffee. I didn't even realize it until I got into the car and looked in the rearview mirror. I said, bro, they think I work for the FBI. Wow. So I wanted to be honest because we work an honest program. I don't work for the FBI. I spoke to the FBI. That's how I got this. So, all right. So welcome to the show. I appreciate y'all joining us tonight. And we have got a great show tonight. Let me take all this stuff off. I got to take this off because I got to get ready. Look at that hair. I'm growing my hair out. Should I grow the hair long? I'm trying to. Well, hold on here. Let me get this out because we got Dan Caldwell coming up. He's backstage. He is backstage, and we are going to have a good one. All right. Y'all ready? Are y'all ready for this? Everybody, welcome to the show, the great Dan Caldwell from Caldwell Counseling. How you doing, my friend?
I am fantastic, man. And how about them Cowboys?
Man, I was so happy to hear that you're a Cowboy fan. I think we got something this year.
Yeah. Hey, at this time of year, we always got something.
Oh, we do. We're tied for the lead. We're tied for the lead.
We're Super Bowl bound this year.
That's right. So Dan Caldwell with Caldwell Counseling down in Houston, Texas, down in H-Town, just south of us. So I'm gonna share, Dan, real quick of how we met. You jumped on the show, a couple months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and have been a regular M2 follower in the on the show, and we appreciate that. And you reached out and said, "Hey, I want to be on the show," in the comments, and we've just been with COVID and going 100 miles an hour. But then as I was in I was in staff meeting with Healing Springs Ranch, your name came up from Steve Paul, who works at Healing Springs Ranch, and said, "Hey, listen, Dan Caldwell reached out to us from Caldwell Counseling, and, we sent him some information, and he's very interested in Healing Springs Ranch." And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I said, I've got to reach out. So Rachel and I were going for a walk the other night and called you up, and I said, man, you are in, because like I said earlier, we get so many people that want to come on into the Rock, and it's hard to get everybody on and maintain, the consistency of the show. So welcome to the show, and I look forward to our friendship.
Yeah, same. I appreciate you getting me on, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we have one thing in common. One thing in common is that we're both in long-term recovery.
Yes, sir.
So real quick, just tell us your story of what it was like and what happened. And obviously we'll finish the show out with what you're doing today.
Yeah, great, man. It was awful. That's short and sweet. It was terrible. I'm 48 years old almost. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. But I spent the better part of my life using and drinking and out of control, man. Making, it's just the same stuff you talk about on a regular basis, just poor decision after poor decision, anger, frustration, guilt, shame, all those fun things that go with addiction. And really, knowing I had a problem the whole time from the very first, I think I've heard you share about this from day one, knowing it was a problem from the very first time, knowing I'm not supposed to react this way.
Right.
And then anger built on top of anger and just not knowing what to do. Right. And then, being pissed off that you didn't know what to do. So it made you more pissed off. And then you acted out on that. And it's just nasty. Nothing good about it. The whole thing, wrecked cars, wrecked relationships, just down the line.
Yeah.
And for those 12-step guys out there, for me, it was just like the businessman was my catalyst. The modern day version of my businessman was my father had passed sometime many years prior. I got sober in 2009 and he passed in 93. And our first family gathering of all of us were going to be at this beach house in Galveston. And I showed up on fire, like literally on fire, physically on fire. I dropped
physically on fire.
Yeah, physically on fire. Like, I can't make that up, man. I step out of the car. My sister's like, bro, you're on fire. And I'm like, what? Right. That's the joys of addiction right there. And it's best. Wasn't my finest moment.
You got me on that one. I've never been on fire yet.
Yeah. Literally on fire. And yeah, awesome's one word for it. And it just went downhill from there, if you can imagine. So it was one of those things where, a week prior to this major deal in my family, I decided to start eating oxys again. And just, you couldn't wait a week, bro, like seriously. And that to me is what I relate in my businessman. So I continued to drink and use dope for a few weeks after that. But that last time wasn't my worst time. but it was the last time, hopefully, knock on wood to this day. And that was really my catalyst, just like the businessman in the book.
Right.
It's time to make a change.
Right. And when was that awakening? What walk us through that? What happened?
Well, so I'll tell you exactly what happened. Was I have a sister that I'm very close with, best of friends, have been as far as I can ever remember. And she kind of cut me out of her life for a minute. And that was the real awakening of, hey, something's got to change. Mm-hmm. So I had gone to AA and let's just say I'm 11 years sober. I started the process probably 16, 17 years ago.
Let me stop you for a second because we need to recognize something. When did you celebrate your 11-year sobriety?
Hey, man, just the other day on the 10th. Yeah, man.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So two days ago, Dan Caldwell celebrates 11 years of consecutive years of sobriety, including weekends.
Yeah, even Sundays.
Yes, perfect.
You got
a good run. You got a good run going.
Yeah, man, I love it. I couldn't, it's because of recovery is where I'm at. I'm sitting here today, man. I don't deserve to be here. That's not a joke. I don't deserve that. But recovery changed my life. Obviously, it was a struggle the first year and a half. I was very fortunate in my route. My very first meeting I went to that I decided to stick around was a speaker meeting, and I heard a dude named Kevin T speak. He was a Native American guy, and I said, down to living in Dallas, to Alaska, to Houston, like it was my story, man. Mm-hmm. And I just said, I got to talk to this guy. And I went right up and I said, I got to meet you. And they tell me I got to have the sponsor thing but would you be willing to do it? And he said, absolutely, man. And, he taught me so much about spirituality and just how to work a program and how to just be regular.
Wow.
Kind of how I put it.
Well, I let's talk about that. So right. you have your awakening and I love it. People who are truly in recovery, what it was like. That's about 30 seconds of our story today.
Yeah, man.
When we were in active addiction, what it was like is our entire story because we want everybody to co-sign on it because they're doing it to me, right?
Absolutely.
So today, 11 years ago, you get clean and sober. Now you've said some key words that I need you to help me with. All right.
Come on.
You said this word sponsor. What the heck is a sponsor?
Man, well, it's the guy I asked for relationship advice from, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't ask that. It's a guy that takes me through the steps.
Okay.
Right? It's for me. It's a guy who's been there, done that on the other side. And he's got something I want that I've never could obtain. And that's what it is to me. It's really that simple. It's not a banker. It's not a ride to the meeting. It's now it may be all those things at some point. I hope not, but it's just a good dude who's worked the steps. And in my case, a man, and in a woman's case, a woman generally. And it's I don't know how you do it. Well, I don't know anybody that could do it without them.
Right.
So
you're talking about a 12-step recovery program, which we talk about a lot on this show. And I love what you said. And a sponsor for people who are newcomers watching this, Dan Caldwell from Caldwell Counseling is saying, a sponsor's job is to walk them through the steps, right?
That's right.
And based on my experience, we were talking just prior to the show. I had lunch with my sponsor today, and Rachel had lunch with her sponsor today. And as time goes on, and as we work these steps with our sponsor, guess what happens? A relationship kind of happens, right? And
Absolutely.
So I start trusting another man that I thought that I would never do, in sobriety. So now you mentioned the word spirituality. What is that all about?
Well, I didn't know till I met this guy.
Yeah.
I like to say, my father made me go to this Baptist church on Sundays, like a bus came by, picked you up. Like, I think that was more a get out of my hair thing than a you need to know Jesus thing, right?
Right.
And which is funny because I just recently graduated from a Christian university. So said, Liberty University. Anyway, all that said is, I believe just in case some stuff happened, right? I had a toe in the water. I mean, really, that was my philosophy is if some things go down, I know where to look, right? But no idea.
Right.
This guy taught me how to communicate. This guy taught me how to appreciate. He said, I said, Kevin, man, when I go to pray, everybody says, get on your knees, do this, or you're doing it wrong. And I said, I just feel silly, man. I feel like I got to start saying thee and thou, things that are really foreign to me. He just said, he kind of chuckled. He's like, you just communicate like you're talking to me. He said, we look up to our creator. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. And I just thought, man, I can vibe with that. And that opened the door for me. Mm-hmm. You know, and here we are sometime later, like I said, graduating from a Christian university, go figure.
Yeah. And so you bring up a good point as you're talking about that. What is your suggestion or your experience talking to another man or woman who's listening to this that really they come into recovery and the last thing that they want to talk about is God? Okay. The people who struggle with, I call it religious trauma, people who are Christian schizophrenics, you know, the people that woke up and, you know, they hear their mom and dad talking a certain way, but yet behind closed doors, they're not living that life. And that's real trauma that's happening in today's, you know, world. But as your personal experience, step 3, made a decision to turn your will and life over to the care of God as we understand him. What does that mean to you?
It's a great question. You know, how living in active addiction, you wonder, like, I was angry if there was a God. I was mad at him. Like, how could you let me live this way if I'm your child and these things? So I struggled with that mightily, right? But I have to go back to step 2 for that, where it says I came to believe. It doesn't say I believe today. Right. And my sponsor, because I questioned him every step of the way, you know, I could tell you how many times the big book says the word recovered, just for the record, 14, if you're interested.
Okay.
But it says, because I was that guy, right? I wanted to prove him wrong. Right. And he said, look, do you believe that I believe? I said, I do, because I see you live in a certain way. That's why I'm talking to you. He said, start there.
There you go.
Okay, that was my way in. And I also did the old typical group of drunks, good orderly direction, because what I knew, I'm not a math wizard, as my friends will attest, but I knew that 12 in this room were here consistently, and that's bigger than one. And while I understand the concept of not using them as a higher power at the time, it worked for me because they're doing something. Something's working in their life, and all they do is show up here. Right. So that was my way in on that one. And, you know, the rest were just as I worked step work and as my life began to change and internally as I began to change, at some point for me, my experience was I couldn't no longer write that off to coincidence. Right. It was just too many things were happening.
That's good stuff. Dan Caldwell. Caldwell Counseling Center is live with us on M2 The Rock. And if you're tuning in on iTunes and iHeartRadio and all that stuff, we appreciate y'all, YouTube. And I tell you, this is good stuff because I want to know what happened after a year or two of sobriety. Where did God reach out and say, hey, I want you to go help others and you can make a living doing this? Talk to me.
So man, it's crazy, right? Like I still sit back and I'm just like, some days I leave my job and I'm like, I can't believe I get paid for this.
Right.
Now other days I'm like, I can't believe that's all I get paid. So, you know, I'm kidding, sort of.
That's called selfishness, right?
Yeah, right. But it's, so I got sober in August of 2009. I'm driving down the road with a friend, and this friend's going to a local community college. Now, mind you, I dropped out of high school in the 10th grade, following my dad's footsteps in the 8th grade or 9th grade, whatever it was. We're not the most educated people. And just the route. And I painted houses, owned my own company for 10 years. It wasn't I didn't need a degree for that. It wasn't in my future. Well, all of a sudden, I had some lung issues, and I literally had to shut my business down overnight. Things happened. Right. Wow. So it was crazy. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've never done anything but paint houses or sell dope or do whatever. Right. And so I don't know what to do. And this person's trying to encourage me. And they're like, well, you've got, you know, you've worked with taxes. You made sure everybody got paid. You sell, you know, to the community. I said, yeah, this person opens up this Lone Star book and goes, you could do anything you want. You could be a drug counselor. I went the very next day to apply for that college. And got in. I started school in January, and I haven't looked back.
Wow. So, and you just recently graduated from college from Liberty Christian?
Yeah, Liberty University. I was on the 10-year plan. I don't recommend it, just for the record. It is what it is.
But you graduated.
I got there.
You graduated. So what are you doing today? So you run a counseling center and walk us through Man, this is your infomercial. What do you do?
Yeah, hey, man, I am the center, just for the record.
Yeah.
I like the CCC design, so center made sense. And at some point, I do hope to grow into a bigger center. But I worked at a treatment center, a great treatment center in Houston for about 9 years. And then last September, I opened up my own practice. And I just, I can remember starting out, in this business in the treatment center, and people asking me like, well, what's your end goal? What do you want to do? And I'm like, bro, I'm doing it. What do you mean? I want to work with people who help me. I want to help others. This is this is the population I want to serve. I'm where I want to be. I'd like to make a little more money. And they said, well, you're going to have to get an education to do that and go on and do other things. So I still work with this population. In fact, that's all I work with is people with some kind of substance use issue, whether current, past. I see family members. Like I do anything substance related. I do assessments. I do interventions. I really do. It's been my baby, and it's a terrible time to start a practice or any other business. You start September 19, and then COVID said, "Hey, man, how you doing?"
Right.
Just kidding.
But you're right.
So we're holding on there, though. It's going well.
So let's walk through this. If you want to check it, it's CaldwellCounselingCenter.net. And for your team or anybody, please put your information in the comments so people can see it. But I wanted to talk here. All right. So you offer individual counseling. What is that?
So that's where you just meet one-on-one with me, and we develop a plan. And, everybody's plan is different. I truly, the whole time in treatment, I kept hearing, now, mind you, we're 12-step. This was a 12-step based center that we'll meet you where you're at. If 12 steps aren't for you, we'll offer you something else. But there was nothing else to offer. Here's a paper to go check out Smart Recovery. But we didn't offer that there. So I made it my mission to truly try to individualize care after treatment. Right? Look, we tend to stamp people with a stamp that says aftercare, psychiatry, therapy, sober living. Which, look, I buy into that model. Let me be the first to say I support that model because it works more than it doesn't, right? But what about those folks that it doesn't work for? What do you do?
Right.
What about those folks that can't go to sober living or can't see a psychiatrist or can't do this or that? You got to help them too, right? So I really made it an effort to, in the individual setting, to let's get a goal together. Let's see what you're willing to do. It's kind of like a motivational interviewing thing. I can write the greatest treatment plan in the world, say, if you go to these meetings, you get this sponsor, you do these things, you're golden, right?
Right.
But the reality is, if you're not willing to do that, what are you willing to do? So we really individualize that and try to just, some days it's talk therapy, some days it's CBT worksheets. It's really varies from person to person.
And what is CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy. See, I believe we're all saying the same thing in some sort, Michael. Like whether it's, look, Christianity says trust God, live right, stay in the moment, be kind to others. AA says practice gratitude and acceptance, live right, treat others. Buddhism, pay attention to the universe and you'll be enlightened. Psychology says we're trying to be self-actualized. We're all saying the same thing. Live right, treat other people right, and you'll be rewarded.
I love that. I love that. So that's individual counseling. Now, this is a good one here. This is the one I love to talk about on this show.
All right.
Okay? Family counseling. Okay.
Yeah.
So Dan, here's M2. Fix them. We're going to go live our life.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me ask you this. I'll tee you up on this. Ready?
All right. Yeah.
What do you mean it's a family disease? I don't have a drinking problem. M2 does.
Right. But what we do is we develop behaviors from that drinking problem that probably aren't healthy, and it destroys our system. Right. So you take said person, get them treatment, get them to start feeling better, get them in some 12-step work, get them with a therapist, and they start to heal. And then we put them back in the same toxic environment where the resentments, and who's going to work on your resentments? Right. Because you built resentments. They're quite obvious in most cases. Right. Right. What about the enabling in some cases where we truly as family just want to help? Right. But we end up hurting. Right. And so having that, when I do an intervention, for example, that's how I approach it as a family. What is the family going to do? It's not just about, hey, you're going to treatment and here's some letters we're going to read. Right. Mm-hmm. It's about what is the family as a whole going to do to solve this family issue? Your piece is treatment. Clearly, that's why we're here. But families got groups. And, we're lucky here in Houston. I'm very fortunate to know a lot of professionals, and a lot of these centers offer free family groups. that are phenomenal. You don't have to have attended their center.
Right.
And I love that about Houston. It's really wide open, and it's just it's phenomenal here. We're so blessed to have so many professionals here.
This is something I really want to touch on, Dan, because I talk about this a lot on the show, and I talk to this in private with people who are looking, the majority of the messages I get on Into the Rock is, can you help my son? Can you help my daughter? Can you help my husband? Help my wife? They are, and I'm like going, the first thing I said is, what are you doing to help yourself? Okay.
That's right.
And it's like, wait a minute, I don't think you heard me. I don't have the problem. He does. And that's so important for everybody who's listening. And I've always said this, that the second that, and we'll just talk from the treatment model, that somebody is going to go to treatment. Okay. The intervention takes place and the loved one says, I'm ready to go to treatment. If that person is in treatment for 2 days, that family better be in treatment for 2 days because it is so powerful. And I say that with so much passion because my story, Dan, when I used to make money, okay, I went to Betty Ford in 2002 because I always say that's where important people like me go, right? Because everybody was thinking about me. So this is where I go. And so I went there. And by the way, it was outstanding. To this day, I still remember stuff I learned there. But when I went there and I came home and I did step 1 in 2002. I did step 3 in 2017. Okay. In the penitentiary. So I don't prescribe that recovery plan. But when I came home, I remember walking into a very dark energy, resentful house where my wife at the time, I walked back in 4 months later and she was on day 2, the day that they found me in a hotel room, and she did not let that go. I shared that because it's powerful, because the family members have got to deal with their resentments as well.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. I know a little bit about your story as well, if that's all right. I know you mentioned the prison time. How did your family react to that? And how did they react to you getting out from that? And how was that walking back into a family unit?
Oh, that's a good question. We just addressed this last night.
I missed last night.
Last night, before the show, my mom came over here to have dinner with us for the very first time. Okay. Right. And she's met Rachel a bunch of times and we've done stuff, but she came over, Rachel made dinner and we were talking, we were chopping it up at the table and Rachel asked the question, what was it like, Michael, going to be incarcerated? Because I grew up in a good house. I grew up upper class. I grew up in country clubs. And that's the first time I looked at her, and she looked at me and she says, it was horrible. It was horrible that my son was incarcerated because I never thought that he would become that person. And so I'm realizing today, I had lunch with my brother last week. We've reconnected as a result of my dad passing away. Right. I mean, this is less than 30 days. We're into this right now. And so it was amazing to see how God's working, putting all of us back together. And for the first time, Dan, I'm realizing I really hurt my brother. My brother told me at lunch, he says, I was so angry at you, Michael, because I'll never forget the time that I walked out to the car and took the gun out of your hand because you were going to kill yourself in front of my house. And see, I'm selfish. I take for granted, like, God, I'm glad I survived that. I didn't even think about how that affected him.
Right.
It traumatized him. Traumatized him. So we have to understand, in recovery, we have hurt a lot of people, and I can't be confused about that, and we talk about amends in recovery, right, Dan? And
absolutely.
And it's all about living amends, right?
It's not about an I'm sorry. That's for sure.
Yeah, those are over with. And so we have to make living amends. And I need people like you to ask me those questions, people like a sponsor to hold me accountable, to remind me, hey, you've only been sober 3.5 years. Okay. It's a process. It is a process. And I have to keep moving my feet, right? To do that.
Hey, if I'm not moving forward, I'm moving backwards.
Right. That's exactly right. So
I'm not standing still.
Yeah, so that's a great question. We just had that conversation yesterday. And it was moving. It was touching. And as the first time my mom looked at me and she said, I was scared to death for you, Michael, because I didn't know what was going on behind the walls. And then, of course, they all freaked out when I was miraculously released, right? and they see this. And here's another thing is they're actually sitting back and they love the new Michael. I mean, I am not the same guy I used to be, Right. They're like, who is this guy, right? And this guy is truly born again. So I got to ask you this. Okay, so let's talk about this. Teletherapy. You offer teletherapy. What is that?
I offer that all over Texas. That lets me reach people all over the place. And this is a true story. Just before COVID hit, there was a DFW symposium, and I know some of the guys up at Casa Colina, and Caleb's my boy. Shout out, Caleb. Anyway, I was going to go up there and meet with some people. And I had set teletherapy up because I wanted to expand from Houston, right? And just say, why not? And then this COVID thing hit and they shut everything down. So I was prepared, luckily, to start teletherapy anyway. And it's, I think the one good thing that's come from COVID is it's allowed people to see what this is about. Some people prefer it even. So it's something I'm going to continue to offer, but it allows, look, Houston's a very big city. Yes. And if somebody's working in the Galleria and they want to schedule a 1:00 appointment, that's half a day for them by the time they drive 45 minutes one way. If traffic is good, get to my office, do an hour session and get back an hour. That's 3 hours, just about 2.5 hours. Again, I'm not a math wizard.
Wait a minute. That's resentment, relief, resentment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I hate this guy. I hate having to do this, but so teletherapy allows those guys for time wise and those ladies and other professionals to just, meet me where they're. Plus, if some people I work with don't have transportation. So teletherapy's been really a blessing in disguise. This, COVID kind of forcing us into it. I mean, I always prefer in person. I just like to connect. Yeah. But teletherapy works, and more importantly, the research shows that it works well. Right. And
teletherapy is what we're doing now, or is it just telephone?
That's right. No. Teletherapy is video. Okay. Now you can do a phone session. I don't like that. That's last resort type thing. Right. But yeah, it just allows us to connect just like we are now, face to face. Hopefully with a better connection than it looks like I'm having.
You look great.
You look great. But that's it's just that's a way we can meet, via video and do the same thing.
Good stuff. Now I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about this one, and you're officially going to be a go-to for me, an asset for this. You are intervention services. Now so talk to me first of all for our listeners. Define what is an intervention.
So there's several models to an intervention, but look, just what everybody probably thinks of when they think of intervention is just, look, you have a loved one that is killing themselves basically with addiction, whether it be drinking, drugging, I don't care. That's irrelevant to me at this point, but they need help. Everybody sees they need help. And it's to a point where, again, they're killing themselves, and you as a family cannot continue to support. You either support addiction. You either support recovery or you support addiction. So you get together, you call a party, a third party that has no emotion involved with the family.
Okay, so they call you. Let's role play. They're going to call Dan, and so
that's right.
What do you do?
So for me, in my model, I talk to them. We kind of do a little consultation over the phone. Just so this is kind of the breakdown of what it's going to look like. Then I meet with them, and it can last anywhere from 3 to 6 hours with the family without the person. And we go over, like you see if you've ever seen the TV show Intervention, it's very similar. We do the letters. There's a format for that. I email to everybody, and then I edit those letters gently, we'll say, and because some people want to tell them about themselves, and that's never a good idea at this moment, right?
Gotcha.
There's a place for that, and this isn't it. But we'll go through that. Everybody to figure out what their bottom line is, meaning, what are you willing to do if they say no? Right. But there's also, what are you willing to do even if they say yes? And that's kind of what we were talking about in the family. What are you willing to do? Is family groups? Is it treatment of your own? Is it, there's a lot of options for family. But that's where it starts. We develop a plan down to who's sitting where in the intervention. You don't think about these details a lot, but you think about this. If you have a family member that agitates a situation, you definitely don't want them sitting next to that person. Right.
Right.
You want whoever they're closest to sitting next to them. So things like that matter. You look at all that. Who's going to some people believe that you chase them if they leave. I'm not chasing anybody. I'm just telling you right now, I'm too old and too fat for that, man. But it's, we will designate, and I'm a stranger. Right. Uh-huh. So we'll designate someone they're closest to that's going to be the designated chaser. But so far, so good. Nobody's run yet. And the reality is this, not everybody goes. That's all the skills, all the finance, all the, whatever it is. Trust me when I tell you I have the skills to get somebody to go if they're willing to go. I mean, if there's any hope. But the reality is as as well as anybody, there's just so many variables in that situation.
So let's talk about something. This is something that we never talk about is during an intervention. It's laid out. Ready, break. You got everybody sitting where they're supposed to be sitting. You've role played this. You've coached them up. Okay, everybody's prayed up. All right, and M2 comes in and everybody's reading their letters and it's going as scripted. And I say no. Walk us through that. What happens?
So at that point, we begin to talk about bottom lines. Okay, that if you don't accept this gift of treatment, this is how our life changes today. This is basically the bottom line is you want them to have a choice. They're making the choices here. I'm not choosing to ask you to leave my home. You're choosing to leave my home, right? Because we either as a family unit, unified unit, we support recovery or we support addiction. And I'm not going to allow you to sit here and kill yourself in front of us. We want to help you every step of the way. This is all about love. It's not about being punitive, right? It is not about punishing somebody and saying, get out of our home because you're using dope. Right. It's about, we can't watch you as a family unit destroy yourself or our family anymore.
Wow. Right. Wow. Because I know the big fear that people always, when I talk to family members on the phone, it's like, but Dan, I can't take that stance. I can't live with myself if he leaves and overdoses and dies. As a counselor, how do you address that?
So I'll tell you as bluntly as I can, and it's never an easy conversation. As a detox counselor for many years at the place I worked, I had this conversation multiple times, and I'll tell you one in particular that stands out as a grandmother. So what happens is, you probably already know, people come to detox on Thursday, Saturday, ready to change their life. Saturday, they're ready to head out. They found what they need, whatever, they're just not into it. So they start threatening family. If you don't come get me, I'm leaving, right? You already know. So what do you think our advice is a solid, front is do not come get them. Now, if you're at a treatment center, let's say like my spot, The Last Resort, they're way out in Smithville. It takes you 2 hours to get down their driveway, right? That's a big difference from the place I worked on a major road in Houston, right? So, they're more apt to leave and catch a bus. But I had this conversation and she said, Dan, what happens if I don't come get him? I don't call his bluff and he leaves your place and he goes out and uses and dies. She's crying and you just feel your heart goes out to that. God, I don't want that for anybody. But I said, what happens if you come get him? He goes out and uses and dies.
Yeah.
Like it brings tears to my eyes thinking about a family member having to be put in that situation, because none of those are good options, right? But at the end of the day, I want that family to leave no stone unturned in helping, right? But not enabling them to kill themselves. So I want them to sleep at night knowing we did everything we could do, and picking them up it's not helping.
It's the rescuing and enabling that's right. You love an addict, you bury an addict. It goes to that. So what is your counsel to our viewers and listeners for, let's say they have the loved one that is actively using and is in full blown denial. Okay. And the codependent has just had it. Okay. And they reach out to Dan and they say, what do we do? What do I do? What's your counsel on that?
Whew, the C word, the codependency, man. I tell you that's a hard word. You know, you really try to educate in that situation and educate on what addiction is and how it looks. And really, I like to take their own experiences and say, you know, the miracle question of how's that working for you so far?
There
right?
You go. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and I don't do it in a snotty, you know, condescending way. It's just really you've done this thus far, yet here you sit. It's if you don't, you know, the old AA stuff. I'm telling you, you're a Dallas guy, so you're a Texas guy, so I know you know who Tim Duncan is from San Antonio. Oh yeah. And I constantly reference him. Why? Because he was one of the top 10 NBA players, not because he was fancy. What was his nickname? Do you know? Do you remember?
Tim Duncan. I don't know, but he was just real basic. He didn't
okay.
He
was the
basic.
Big fundamental was his nickname.
Yeah.
Get back to the recovery basics, the fundamentals, right? And that is, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Or if I keep doing the same thing and I want something different, I'm going to be in the counselor's office because it's going to make me insane.
Right, but Dan, I love chaos. How do I get over this? The pain's just got to get bad enough.
I mean, that's one way to look at it. Yeah. I mean, when you've had, as my sponsor would tell me, when you've had enough, you'll come talk to me.
That's so true, and I want people to hear that.
People need
to hear that.
Come in there huffing and puffing, pouting. What's wrong, Danny? Nothing. Okay. When you've had enough, you'll come talk to me. So walk off mumbling, cursing at him, only to come back an hour later. Okay, bro, I'm ready.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you tell me, what would that take? You've been around a lot of families and you see these guys in groups. What do you tell them? What does that take?
I simply tell the person, you can go with me. I'm not going with you. Okay. So the choices that you're making right now is a luxury that I don't have anymore. Okay. Yeah. I've been down that road, and listen, and I always say this, even about early recovery. If early recovery were easy and smooth sailing, dude, I'd be in H-Town right now getting drunk with you.
Come
right?
On.
I mean, we would be just getting it. And then I would say, hey, Dan, let's go get sober on Wednesday. That's a good idea. And then we procrastinate and go to Thursday. And we can't do Thursday. It's Thursday night football. It's not football season. Oh, that's right. It's basketball. We're drinking tonight. You know what I mean? Yeah, so we just never do it. So early recovery is tough. We get over the hump. We got to get honest. And getting honest for the first time in my life without chemicals, wow, that's uncomfortable.
Brutal.
And then I got to look at the wreckage of my past, Dan. What? And then, Dan, you're telling me to believe in Casper the Friendly Ghost? Bro, get out of town. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you're telling me alcohol's not my problem. Now you're talking to me. I'm going to keep drinking. That's when I'm really sick, you know?
Yeah. It's yeah.
So that's what I share with them. And, you know, I always tell them that, you know, you can go with me. I'm not going with you. And I think it's great you being in recovery, having 11 years of clean time sobriety, and you get to share that as a counselor. You know what I mean?
I do.
When I talk to people in recovery, I tell them this. I said, let me tell you one thing. You can't run game on me. You cannot run game on me because I'm an alcoholic and a drug addict to the worst degree. Okay. And I see it in your eyes. And there's something, I love this, Dan. You ready? Especially the people who don't have faith, okay, that really struggle with this. And they're really, really hurting with, I can't stop drinking. I can't stop doing drugs. I've had this conversation. And they go, I can't imagine not drinking the rest of my life. And I go, well, I can relate to you there. Neither can I. Okay. Yeah. But I'm going to do an experiment for you. Okay. And this is when I'm on my phone. So y'all listen to this. So when I'm on my phone talking to them, the iPhone, as I'm talking to them, I said, I'm doing an experiment right now with you, Dan. Okay. We have been on the phone for, let's say, 20 minutes and 16 seconds. Have you had a drink or drug during this conversation? They go, well, no. Okay. Let's hold on to that. And they don't get that. Okay. And I said, can you go 3 minutes without drugs or alcohol? I've never had anybody say no. They immediately say, no problem. Bet. Lock it down. I can do it in 3 minutes. Hold on to that. That's a faith that we can hold on to and see. Why is it they can say 3 minutes and they don't even hesitate and say yes? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's faith right there.
That's a solid point. And talking to those that know, they get it. Right. Yeah. That's one of those things like the mental obsession. All the education in the world, all the experience, I can't put that into words to give to somebody that's never experienced that. Right. I can't give that to you and make that. So when people that don't know hear 3 minutes, well, that's silly. Of course, anybody can do that. No, there was a time I didn't know that I could do that.
Right.
Literally, whether it was drinking, using dope, one or the other, all the same to me, it was always something. Right. It was just varying degrees. But that minute by minute, sometimes in early sobriety really saved me. And the exercises like that, talking to men like you who said, it's been 3 minutes. See, those are sometimes that's what saved me sometimes.
And here's the key component of that. Yeah. It's a conversation with another man in recovery. That's now, right. If I was by myself, number one, I would never challenge myself. Can I go 3 minutes without a drink or drug? I would never even propose that question to myself. But it has to come from someone like you to ask me that question for me to go, no problem. Bet, knock it down. And then we go, hold on to that. And then we start piling these minutes because that's literally where I was at in my life. I shared today at lunch about one of my failed suicide attempts. I swallowed a whole bottle of trazodone. And that was the worst detox. That was one of my worst detoxes off of everything, was coming off of 60 trazodone. I mean, that was just like horrible. But that was a horrible deal. Hey, I got to talk about something real quick about recovery. Okay. Yeah. Talking about in recovery. This is something I love talking to other men in recovery, other 12 steppers in recovery, especially someone like yourself, a counselor. All right. Mm-hmm. When we talk about resentment is the number one offender, it will kill me. It will kill me. What does that mean?
Well, as the book also says, anger, and I love the 30s, God love them. Anger is the dubious luxury of other men. Right?
Love it.
Who talks like that is all I'm saying. But you're right. That's what happens if I hang on to these resentments, where people who were born with these coping skills, and I say born with because I certainly wasn't, and I wasn't taught them. My parents could only teach what they had. They didn't have that either. So it's not their fault. Right. It just is what it is. And without those, we hang on to these. And that's where that leads. When we hang on to anger, nothing good happens. It's not like, I wish I could say it was like everybody else who gets a little upset. You've been to treatment. And so you've seen the old valuable feeling wheel we have, right? Where it's got the 4 or 5 major feelings in the middle and the 50 or 60. I live my life with 4 feelings: way over the top happy, way below bottom sad, pissed off, or super pissed off. Those were my 4 feelings. And that anger was 2 of the 5. It was half.
Right.
And that's how I spent the majority of my time was angry. And that's when having a resentment at you, I'm going to show you, it just validates what I'm doing. So in my mind, right, because I don't think right. So in my mind, that validates my reasoning for doing what I'm doing. Well, you'd do it too if you were mad at this person or if they treated you this way. All they wanted to do was help.
Right.
So
what is your solution to, because I know you're like me, you're an alcoholic and a drug addict in long-term recovery, right? Yeah, so when Dan is sitting in his office and does not have a client and he starts going way in the future about, hey, Dan, how are you going to support your family? How are you going to retire? You got Dan, bro, you're a counselor. You ain't gangster. You ain't got that big stockpile of cash. And we start getting way out there in the future. Are you tracking with me?
Absolutely.
And we start taking these thoughts and we put them in our head and then they become our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then we really start getting out there. What does Dan do when he starts tripping?
Remember Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. Man, yeah. I'm coming back to be grounded in what I know to be true.
How do you do that?
That is if I do certain things. For me, I'm going to tell you in one word: gratitude. If I can find my way back to gratitude, I believe gratitude breeds humility. And if I'm in a place of humility, what does the book say about acceptance? It's the key to all my problems. And so if I'm in a place of humility, I'm automatically in a place of acceptance. So if I can find my way through gratitude route, and that is stopping, breathing for starters, that's a real thing.
Right.
Take a breath. It's never too late to start my day over, as my first sponsor would always say. Let's go get some breakfast tacos. He would say, I'd be like, I don't want any damn tacos, right? But I want to stay mad. He's like, that's fine. That's your right too. But
right.
I'm going ahead and start my day over. So, I try to stay grounded in that gratitude of, you know what? I'm so blessed and I know you can relate to this, to be doing what I'm doing and be talking to people like you and the people I work with. Like, dude, it's not even funny how blessed that is. Like, I'm a dope fiend. I'm an alcoholic. I hate those terms, but if I have to relate, that's what it is. But that's my best asset today.
Right.
Like, I keep shaking this thing. Sorry.
That's all right. Well, and the other thing, this is a good one. Gratitude is everything. We have someone, Robert from New York or New Jersey, I believe, is saying serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Okay. I'll never forget this. Check this out. I'm at Hutchins prison. Okay. And I was not taking a meeting to the prison. I was actually an inmate. Okay. So I'm at Hutchins, and I will never forget that this schizophrenic walked by me and he says, "Hey, Rabbit, do you know what true acceptance is?" And I'm like going, "No, what are you talking about?" He goes, "True acceptance has no resentments." Wow. That's true acceptance. That's my checkpoint. How do I know if I have accepted something? Because I have no resentments towards it. And when I have a resentment towards something, Dan, it's because I play a role in it.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
Absolutely. So look here, my girl, Jamie McKibben from Houston, she got a place called Life Giving Life. Look it up. It's a fantastic organization.
Oh, cool.
She says thoughts are thoughts. They aren't facts. And I got to remember that my thoughts don't, because I think it doesn't make it true. Right.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. And if I can, again, get back to my basics and being grounded and recognizing, hey, look around you, right? Just because things aren't going my way. Nikki Sixx said this. Come on, y'all. He said, just because things aren't going my way doesn't mean they're going wrong.
Wow.
So I have to remember that.
He's got some time. He's got some time on himself. So
yeah, and by the way, he congratulated me on my 11 years.
Nikki Sixx did?
He sure did.
That's what's up. That is really cool.
That is what's up. I don't know him. Let me be clear. I don't know the dude. Twitter's a wonderful thing, but I act like I do. I'm like,
that is really cool. Nikki Sixx. Yeah, he's got some time on his side. So, okay. So check this out. So, all right. When I hear that people talk about relapse, okay, because I was a chronic relapser. An old timer taught me how to say it. Michael, that's not who you are today. I was a chronic relapser, but the common denominator that I see in people who relapse, this is what I see, okay, is that they don't go to meetings, they don't work the steps, and they don't have a sponsor. Why is that prescription right there so successful? That one's working pretty good. Those three things. Why is that so successful?
Man, the support is like nothing else out there, right? Yeah. There's just nothing else out there like it. It's accountability, it's structure, it's support, it's belonging, right? That is the biggest thing that the 12-step program gave me, was a place to belong. Right. I didn't, as they always say, it's people that normally wouldn't mix, and that I can attest. Right. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, it's knowing that, I'm not the only one out there that thinks this way. Right. Yeah. There's a comedian named Mark Lundholm that used to come to the treatment center I worked at every month. I saw him for years. Great dude. Look him up. Wonderful. But he would say, my two favorite things, grateful never relapses. I was saying that the other night. And then he says, I use a broken brain to try to fix myself.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Right. How do I expect to?
I forgot about that. That's so good.
Yeah.
My sick, that's the insane. My sick brain is making decisions to fix my sick brain.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, it's kind of, you see the irony, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like, this makes sense. So that combination of helping me stay accountable, helping me stay grounded, and giving me those instructions of, as much as I hated being told for every problem, hey, it's on page this, why don't you go read that? Or, hey, why don't you go to a meeting? Or, hey, why don't you do this? Let me tell you real quickly, I'll tell you the story, what got me into recovery. Facebook, and I'm dating myself, it was a thing, but it was fairly new. So you'd find people that would just friend you, be on Messenger or something. And I saw this dude, his name Paul P. And he said, we laugh about it to this day, because I was, hammered and crying. I saw him and I was like, oh yeah, this is my dude. I'm going to cry to him, be like, I want to go back into recovery. It basically helped me. And he just said, look, dude, get your ass to a meeting then. I'm not going to coddle you. Now, I remember clicking it off real quick going, jerk. Like, right, who's this dude? I went to a meeting the next day, and that was the first of my journey of 11 years.
Is that right?
That's why that prescription works, I think, because I've had a sponsor who coddled me a little bit, and that worked when I needed it, and then until it didn't. And then I had a sponsor who said, if you don't read this by this date, don't waste my time. And that worked too. So it's just I think the combination is just, it offers something unique that something else just doesn't offer. It's another man or woman in the same disease, if you will, disorder, whatever you choose to label it. There's nothing like it.
Well, and there's something so powerful about connection. And, we've been on the air here for, just under an hour, and we don't know each other, but now we're so close. There's a connection. Yeah. I feel a connection,
Absolutely.
I just feel this connection. That's what's so powerful. Non-scripted. So everybody who's listening and watching, there's no script. He came on and I literally said, Dan, I'm going to leave you backstage and I'm going to come back later. I can't talk to you right now because a show will break out before the show. One thing that we need to talk about, I want to address something. What about these spiritual principles? It's something that I need to work on talking about more on the show. My friend Carol has challenged me to do that. But spiritual principles, why is that a part of recovery if you choose that route?
Mind, body, and spirit, right? That's that they say it's a threefold disease according to the 12-step philosophy. Is
Amen.
So if I treat one, it's the old saying that look, man, if I sober up a car thief, what do I have?
Yeah, I got a sober car thief.
If I don't change my spirituality piece that guides the rest of me, I got to change them all, man. And right. So let me ask you, why do you think it's so important, the spirituality piece?
Because I believe I can get really deep on this and preach. The more sober that I get, I've truly come to believe that addiction is a spiritual stronghold. It is a spiritual stronghold. And the more that I listen in my personal growth in my spirituality is that I'm starting to really realize I'm not addicted to just drugs and alcohol. I'm addicted to visible things to try to fix my invisible problems. To this day, if I get into fear, I want that quick fix, and I will reach for coffee. I will reach for, something to fix this invisible problem. And my sponsor reminded me today, I asked him about a situation that I'm going through, that there's some fear that I'm encountering. Okay. And I was looking for this incredible, I wanted him to give me this super duper visible solution. And he looked at me, he says, how's your prayer life? He says, are you hitting your knees every morning like you did in prison? And I said, no. He says, are you hitting your knees every night and saying thank you like you did in prison, like you tell everybody you did? And I said, no. He says, let's start there. Because when we are living a spiritual connection, nothing matters. Nothing matters. And I learned that in prison. I pray all day long. I'm talking to God all the time. Okay. But as far as that dedicated time, being alone, and it doesn't have to be art and thou and King James Version prayers. Not for me. Right. God wants me to be honest. He wants me to cut through the fat, get to the meat. What do you need? How can I help you? And that's what I need. And that's what, so today, Amen, he's challenged me. He says, crank up your prayer life, and this fear and anxiety will dissipate. It will dissipate. And so I said, you got it. So that's it. Back to fundamentals.
That's right. We get away from them and we try to get fancy. And I think even sometimes not on purpose. I know for me, a lot of times that when I find myself getting away, it's not that I'm trying to be different. It's not that I feel like I got anything. It just start feeling good. And the things that are working aren't as important till I recognize they're not working in my life. And then I look back and say fundamentals. Exactly.
Right.
Let me ask you
one thing real quick. When I notice that when my prayer life is consistent, I'm giving God permission to show me grace. Right. Okay. If my prayer life is not consistent, I'm trying to play God.
Ooh, that's not him. That's for sure.
Right. Dude, if I try to play God, he'll let me. That's how much he loves me.
That's a fact. I like that one.
You say, M2, go out there and get your 28th mug shot. Let's see how that works out.
So, how's this for showing you grace? And I'm going to go by what I heard you share the other night of being in prison and reading to that gentleman.
Yeah.
Like, dude, how's that? Like if that's not saying, hey, here's a sign. Yeah. Like that's incredible. And, I don't know if you want to share that or not, but I found that to be just fascinating, man.
That is, the more and more I do tell my story when I speak and I talk about Uwe. Uwe is the 75-year-old man that asked me to read to him because he could not read. And the only thing that I had in the tank was a Bible that I read to him. And I share this at the time, it was just black words on white paper, just doing my time. Right. And then it started speaking to me and I started doing easy time because I started living in the now because I was in service. I was serving somebody else and it kept me out of self. That's why I truly believe God's purpose. He started molding me for radio and TV at a young age, but I mean, especially in prison where I was literally doing M2 the Rock in prison because I was serving people because I was able to do easy time. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being incarcerated. And to this day where, it is this, I always say the safest place in the world, Dan, for me is right here, right now, because that's where God's at. That's where he's at.
Dude, I got a story for you. Look here. Okay. There's a lady I love here in Houston. She's a business development person for a treatment center. Her name's Sarah Bolton.
Okay.
And she is salt of the earth type person, right? Very, very rooted in her faith. She tells a story. I'm getting goosebumps already, bro. She says she went on a trip with her church to Israel. Like dream trip of a lifetime for her, right? It's a holy land. I'm going. She says she found herself not really at the Sea of Galilee, mind you, right? I mean, the legit there, and says, I'm finding myself not having the experience that I thought I would. What's wrong with me? Why not? She said, at that moment, I'm going to try not to cry. She said, at that moment, I felt a hand on my shoulder and a voice say, daughter, I'm with you, whether it's here or in Houston. Like, whoo! Like, I mean, that is legit. And that's what you're saying is right here, right now. I'm here.
That's it.
I have to just tap in. I have to be willing to accept that or open up to that.
And that's why the group therapy is so powerful. That's why one alcoholic working with another is so powerful. One drug addict working with another drug addict is so powerful because, and I've even at the iHeartRadio studio, people would come in, okay? Just like right here, right? I'll do the experiment with you right now, okay? Yeah. The show's over. We're 3 minutes over.
No.
How did you feel how fast that 1 hour went?
Dude, it seems like 5 minutes.
Are you ready? Did you once in the last 60 minutes go way into the future alone and get fearful, anxious, and paranoid?
Not once.
Not once. Did you once go into the past in this hour? Did you go in the past and get resentful, angry, and depressed?
Not once.
Not once. Why? Because there's a connection and we were right here, right now, and you were sharing your experience, strength, and hope. And for 1 hour, Dan, you were out of self, helping others, and you were in the now doing God's work. There's no other high. There is no other high better than that. And that's how That's how recovery works. And that's how it does it. That's how you get 11 years. Okay.
That's right.
And that's also what it means. We don't have bad days. We have bad moments, you know, right. That's what's so good about it. Special shout out real quick. Here's Steve Paul. Steve Paul is just tuned in. Steve. So Steve Paul wanted me to give you a message that he was been a little under the weather. You can talk to him in private. Steve is a champion, a warrior, but he's got your stuff for you. So he told me to tell you today that he's got your package and all of that. Dan, we have run out of time. Will you please come back on the show? I think this would be great to have different topics that we come on and let's break down recovery and do shows with it, right?
I'd love to, man. Look, Michael, I just appreciate the hell out of you and what you do. And you know, I told you yesterday, I tune in all the time because I like what I hear. Thank you. And that's what keeps me coming back. And I know you help a lot of people, and I appreciate that.
Well, we love what we do, and that's what we do is we trust God, we clean house, and we help others. Everybody, make sure you we're going to put his information in the comments, and Dan with Caldwell Counseling Center in Houston, Texas. Please go and like his page and support him, and share his page out. And also you will see when you're watching, he's always in the comments watching. If you need help, reach out to him, message him. He is there to help out. And Dan, get up here to Dallas soon. Let's go to Healing Springs Ranch and let you look around and check it out. And welcome to the show. And thank you. And I'm gonna put you backstage real quick, and I'll be right back to you. Everybody hit the hearts, the likes, and everybody real quick, hashtag CCC. Oh, there you go. Let's show him how much we appreciate him in the comments. Everybody hashtag CCC. And show appreciation. Dan, thank you so much. Be right back, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Wow, what a good show. Another one. And, man, that was so good. I love talking to other men in recovery. And, man, I'm glad God put that man in my life. We are definitely going to have Dan back on the show again. That's my boy right there. We can talk recovery. We could talk God. We could talk resentments. We could talk anger. I mean, did y'all see what happened right there? Never met this guy. And if I were to get in fear, if I were to get in resentment tonight, I know I could call him and he could provide solutions for me. Maybe just give me just a good listening to, right? All right, guys, we got to go. Rachel's hungry. She's texted me, and I'm supposed to go take her to eat some Mexican food. And she's like, hey, honey, can we go? Mama's we don't want mama angry, right? We don't want mama angry. I got 3 words. I got 8 letters, and it's got one meaning for all of y'all and from Dan. I know this. I love you. Everyone, make it a good night. Hey, go text 3 people. Get out of stealth. Go text 3 people and say, I love you, expecting nothing in return. Go do that tonight. Good night, everyone.